Welcome to Wellness with Purpose.
Different life phases, especially after having a baby or you're going through, another life transition, our bodies change constantly. And so we tend to start to dress to hide ourselves. So I'm not saying that I haven't been through those phases myself, as, postpartum and, just different phases where I just didn't feel that confident in my body. For me personally, dressing up has always been a little bit of a positive distraction. If everything else is like on fire, this is the only thing I can control. I can control myself. I can show up to my workouts. I can control what I put in my mind and my body. And I can put on an outfit that makes me feel great.
Most wellness conversations start with what you eat or how you move. This one starts with what you put on and why that might matters just as much. So my guest is Melissa Prazeres, founder of Dusk company, who help women carry confidence and visibility throughout their whole day. Desk to Dusk. Melissa, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me.
I love already that your wife, so let's get into it. I want to talk about what was happening in your life in that moment when you realized that this was the work you were meant to do.
What a great question and great place to start. So the idea for Desk to Dusk was actually born in my daughter's nursery room. She was about 7 months old. I remember being awake one morning. She was sick for the first time, and being a new mom and not really knowing how to navigate all of that, I was up and just, watching her like a hawk. But I remember sitting there and just thinking, what does this next phase of my life look like? I was journaling. I had my own bout with postpartum depression that I was kind of in denial at the time, but reflecting back, I definitely had gone through that in that phase, and I was journaling for clarity. And I remember writing down a list of things that I wanted to accomplish at some point in my lifetime. And then I also had a list of things that I was good at, that I thought I was good at. And I was trying to find, okay, how can I fully embrace and enjoy this new phase of being a mom and, find what the next phase of my career is going to look like too. And that's where I looked at the two lists, and I didn't think I was as all over the place as I first thought I was. And then my mom was, I guess, the original inspiration for Desk to Dusk. She was very fashionable and she would always be dressed for work. She was always dressed in a suit or a blazer. And so that was kind of just my baseline when it came to fashion. And I realized that when I was in the workforce prior to having my daughter, I was in a sales role where I had to dress up for work, and I was out in the community and I was representing our company, and I always had to look professional, but I was also in my 20s. So I couldn't really afford some of the, higher end luxury suiting, but I wanted to still, but I also didn't want to, I wanted to feel young and fresh and stylish and be true to myself too. I found myself having to choose between like junior stores for the colors and the style, and then luxury suiting that I couldn't always, justify purchasing. It was like either that or the, rent. And I wanted to fill that gap because I knew there were a lot of women like me who love dressing up for work, and knew how important that was, not just for our company or, for ourselves. That's what we spend a lot of time.
Confident and maybe
Absolutely.
Who you are. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so I wanted to fill that gap and serve women like myself who love dressing up for work, who enjoy dressing up for work, or maybe lost that passion for it because they felt like, they lost themselves in the process, and find a way to provide women with quality workwear that still had personality.
Wow. So it's good to say that it was never like a business plan, but it's something that happened to you.
Yeah. So, it just became really apparent that how much of it was missing in the market. It was two very obvious extremes, and it didn't feel like, knowing that I was the face of my company and in a mix of so many other professionals in the same industry, I felt like this was a slight thing that I had as an edge. And when I was out and about, that was even just a conversation starter or made me approachable, not because I had like a bright pink outfit on or anything like that, but just because I was comfortable in who I was, And so I just would use little things like that to be able to kind of set myself apart. And I think that was something that I wanted for all women. I enjoyed it. I felt confident in it. And, I'd have my mom bun at home and sweatpants. And as soon as I put something else on, like I feel like a different person. I feel like I can take on a different responsibilities and identity almost. And so I wanted other women to also enjoy that with me.
And I appreciate that you shared about that you were in a what you call postpartum depression, and it's very difficult to say it out loud, and that is what made you think and made you maybe take a step back and think about your next phase, and that's how your idea began. So my question is, why desk to dusk? I mean, what part of a woman's day you feel that everyone was ignoring?
As women, if you ask any woman to describe herself, she will list off all the roles she plays in everybody's lives. I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm so and so's daughter or sister. And it's really important that we are who we are from morning till evening while we fulfill those roles. And regardless of how well we perform in one single role, it does not change who we are internally at our core. At the end of the day, you have a fresh start tomorrow to do a better job at that role. And before I was a mom, I was Melissa, and before you were a mom, you were, and that was really important. Identity was really important. And so from morning to evening, desk to dusk. And also on the fashion side, I wanted workwear that felt transitional. Like I said, I was out and about quite a lot for work, and I wanted pieces that weren't just, I can only wear this to work, or I can only wear this going out. I wanted pieces that felt like this is who I am and I can make it work for myself, have versatility, and my dollars, stretch what's in my closet a little bit more. So it had two parts to it, a deeper meaning and then the fashion side.
Wow, love it. So you're talking about the stretch. So what is stretch of your life where you dress to like disappear or instead to be seen?
You mean me personally?
Yeah, I mean, do you feel that you were dressing to disappear or maybe like instead to be seen?
Me personally, I know that disappearing never was something that served me in any way. I've been an athlete my whole life. I moved to the US to play college tennis from Dubai. And so fashion was and dressing up was just part of culture there. So it was never about hiding myself in any type of way. But I've worked with women across the country for the last 8 years through Dusk to Dusk. And I understand that different life phases, especially like, after having a baby or you're going through, another life transition, our bodies change constantly. And so we tend to start to dress to hide ourselves. So I'm not saying that I haven't been through those phases myself, as, postpartum and, just different phases where I just didn't feel that confident in my body. But for me personally, dressing up has always been a little bit of a positive distraction. If everything else is like on fire, this is the only thing I can control. I can control myself. I can show up to my workouts. I can control what I put in my mind and my body. And I can put on an outfit that makes me feel great. And so I hope when we do our one-on-one appointments with our clients, that's something that we talk about clothing, or they're there for clothing. But on the deeper surface, when we start to get deeper, we're really talking about things like this, because a lot of the times women start to hide behind clothing, and it does the exact opposite of whatever it is that their goals are. Hiding is just never the solution for it, and it's just, even if you don't have any financial or business goals, what point is living if you're trying to just, recluse into some shell? So that's not uncommon for a lot of us to go through at different phases of our life.
I believe that you are absolutely right, because oftentimes, women, they find clothes just to hide, not to be seen. They are just because they are stepping out of one role, then they are stepping into the another role. So I completely agree with you what you said.
And I think a lot of the times women are, as moms or just, busy women, it's not something that we prioritize because we're doing so many things. And so it's so hard to think, why would I go spend 20, 30 minutes on something when I can actually put my time towards doing something a little bit more productive? Right. But I think this is something, if you actually allot time for, take a step back, and sometimes that means whenever we're saying yes to something, we're saying no to something else. So when I'm allotting time to get myself ready when I could be doing something, more important, that's taken away from something else. But in the long run, in the bigger picture, it's actually going to be a little bit more helpful for me.
And I can see how passionate about your work.
We all deserve to feel confident. And, I'm not saying everyone has to love fashion, you don't have to be a fashion stylist and, or super into fashion like that. You just need to feel good in your skin and not feel like, you need to hide behind anything.
Of course, of course. So when you launched, what scared you more? Like being judged for the idea or like being seen actually succeeding at it?
I had a very big vision and but a very clear one. And I didn't know if I would be equipped or funded enough to get there. And, 8 years in, I still feel like that is still something that I will grapple with because, when women are deciding whether they want to shop with me and shop Dusk to Dusk or someone else, those other, options are giant retailers who have history or companies that are well funded with teams, and there's me. So I that was probably the scariest thing, is that what resources do I have, or how am I going to figure this out? It's part for me.
But see, you figured it out.
We're still alive. Yes. I'm really excited. I feel like the company has come a long way in 8 years. We started online. And then that was back in 2018. And now we have a showroom here in Fresno, California.
Wow.
So it's been great. There's been a lot of growth and a lot of learning, and I'm excited for what's to come.
Yeah. And things have been changing because now people like the boutique stores rather than going to a retailer shop. I love to go to boutique shops.
Yes. You get something different everywhere you go. I think there's that personal touch, and that's like shopping with any small business that I'm personally invested in every single person that walks through my doors, and whether that's physically or online. And so that's just the experience you get with the small business.
Okay. So let's talk about your work. So that stylists, they pick out clothes. So what is the thing that you are actually doing that has nothing to do with the clothes?
Women can shop Dusk to Dusk online, and there's no styling assistance, but we do offer shopping assistance because what I found early on was customers messaging me on social media saying, "Hey, what should I wear this with? I'm going to an interview." And so we developed our signature styling service, which is designed specifically for business women. So it has a very different approach than a traditional fashion styling, service that exists. And beyond talking about clothing, on those one-on-one calls, we are really diving deep on what that woman's going through in that current moment. Sometimes it's just an outfit for something important. Sometimes it's a complete wardrobe upgrade. And so the conversations there start to center around identity, body image, self-image. And then those conversations tend to get really deep and heavy. And those things are sometimes tied to very traumatic things through childhood and just maybe some adult experiences. With the exposure of media and social media, I think, a lot of our self-image has been so tainted by messaging that is not ours. And so sometimes those conversations get to be very deep and heavy.
That's interesting. I mean, that's like a whole distinctions right there. Because I feel that the trend fades, but what you are suggesting to your client, what you are talking to your clients, it will remain fresh forever, or maybe in the present day.
It really is like a deep dive into yourself. We're there for clothes. We want to look fun and fabulous and all those things. But these are business women at the end of the day. A lot of them are in forward facing roles. They're speakers, they're founders, they're, executives. And so in order for them to, advance to the next level or perform at a high level, they are having conversations with themselves and people in their lives, like, other professionals. And those things tend to show up in our space too. Clothing is just the outer layer, but there's layers beyond that are just, all tied in.
So I'm very intrigued. Can you tell me about the moment you watched a client see herself differently in real time? Maybe an example of a client you dressed up and you have seen quite the difference in her appearance over the time.
Sure. I have a few stories, but one that sticks out was the most recent one. It wasn't too long ago. She was going through a life transition, going through a divorce, but she was also being promoted in her organization. And she was going to be in a role where she was on the front lines and in front of media and traveling. And so she was struggling because personally, she just wanted to go into her under her covers and not come out. And, you know, also her words were that she was at a point in her life where she didn't love what she looked like in the mirror because she wasn't the 30-year-old that she once was. And now she's starting fresh as a single woman with gray hair and, you know, a completely different body than what, you know, a dating woman is supposed to look like. So that was what she was dealing with on the personal side. And then on her professional side, she had to show up, you know, in front of a camera or in front of audiences. And it was such a pull for her. So she booked her one-on-one appointment because she couldn't figure it out. Like she wanted to shop, but she didn't know what to get. And so she came into the showroom and we started to talk about how we could break down some of those barriers and figure out, once we took her measurements and I said, okay, this is how, you know, you need to think about dressing your body versus just, you know, I don't want you to dress like me. I don't want you to feel like you're in a costume when you show up on stage, you know, pretending to be somebody else. I want you to walk out there and not even have to think about your outfit. And so we took her measurements and I was just like, oh, wow, your ratios and she are really great because this is something that a lot of women aspire to. And she looked in the mirror and she looked at me and she said, what? I would have never looked at myself that way. You know, you made me, I've never felt like desirable in that way in a long time. And she just her posture completely changed in that moment. And it was just a small compliment from you know, I was still a stranger at the time. And that completely fixed her posture. And from then on, I don't think I've heard her negatively speak about her body. And she's been in a couple times since then. And I think that's just part of, you know, the clothes are just one part of it. But again, it's just how you see yourself in the mirror. You can buy the nicest outfit anywhere, but it doesn't matter if you can't see it.
That gave me a chills. I mean, it's not a makeover, but she actually came back to herself.
She did. And I think there's a little bit of an acceptance that had to happen. Like, I'm not 35 anymore or 25, but I'm 60 and I'm here, you know, and I get to do life all over again in a different way. And I think it's sometimes just a reframe that helps us all. And we all need it sometimes.
So since it's a business and every business comes with the challenges. So what do you think, what is the hardest part of this selling confidence where everyone thinks that they are just buying a clothes?
You know, the transformation is internal and the conversations don't happen unless they're in those one-on-one appointments. So at the end of the day, you know, if people are shopping, it has to be something that they feel within them to begin with. But as far as I can't sell confidence, I could just point out to you what I see in you, and you have to be willing to receive that. I think you have to meet somebody halfway, whether you're working with myself or say, for example, a therapist or a counselor or whoever, you know, a professional that can guide someone through that. You have to be willing to meet them halfway and be open to seeing that in yourself.
So I'm intrigued, like when someone booked you like 101, so what really happens? I mean, do they have do they come with a specific outfit or do they come with just, okay, Melissa, dress me or style me?
Okay, so most times they're launching a company, they're doing a branding shoot, and they need a mix of outfits for that photo shoot. Or they're speaking on stage. I've had a lot of TEDx and come to me, hey, I'm speaking on stage, I need something for the stage. And they usually have some type of an event or they're being promoted or there's a change in their career that they need to dress up a little bit more for. So that's typically what happens. And, you know, again, they're at liberty to shop the showroom themselves or online, or they book that appointment and they get one-on-one assistance with myself or a team member, and we'll walk them through the shopping process. If they want additional styling, which is a much deeper, like we talked about, the in-depth signature styling service that Desk to Desk offers, you know, then they can opt into that as well.
How difficult is to make them confidence or make them convince that, okay, this is what I'm going to style you, but you need to change some of your outfits or some of your styling versions? Is it difficult to make them convince?
That's not my approach. I don't want to tell somebody, this is how you should look. I will meet someone where they're at and help them. And I always ask for permission. I think my go-to line is like, can I be honest with you? Because I want to be very direct and blunt with me, but I also know sometimes this is a very delicate, subject to kind of.
Right. Yeah,
And most of the times this is a first meeting. If we have a relationship built over time, that conversation looks different. But first time meeting somebody, if you were in the showroom right now and you didn't like us, you were trying to hide a certain part of your body. And I said, well, no, I don't see what you see. I don't think you would really trust me because you've trusted whatever it is that you see with your own eyes for such a long time. And so it's really hard for me to just be like, you're lying to yourself, So I feel like, I try to meet people where they are and, I will nudge them in a direction and say, give them proof of women who maybe are in similar fields, age group, or just body shape and say, here's what they're doing. Do you like something about this? Or what don't you like about it? And that's a big part of the conversation too. What don't you like? Then we'll try and edit from there and find something that really makes them feel comfortable like themselves, but then like a 2.0 version.
Wonderful. That's beautiful what you said. I mean, of course, you cannot push people to the edge, but it's good to meet them where they are.
But then with a little nudge.
Of course, with a little nudge.
Yeah. Because I had a woman come in not too long ago and she said, I want to hide these rolls right here. And I was looking so hard because I was like, I wanted to agree with her. I'm like, okay, I see what you mean. I couldn't see those rolls to whatever shirt she had on. And so it's just, but if our bodies change and it's just so hard sometimes to accept that things just look different and things are not as high as they once were. And, it's just part of life. But, so I'm like, I don't see what you see, but okay, we don't, have to, we don't have to, focus on that area.
And since we're talking about this work, so what part of running desk to desk quietly eats your whole week?
Oh gosh. Social media. Yes. Fortunately, we have grown primarily through word of mouth and organic reach, which is just predominantly, social media and our clients. So, and I've invested a lot recently in my personal brand as well. So I do spend a lot of time on social media that I wish I didn't. And I know there's ways around. I'm working my way through it, and I know it's just where I'm at right now.
Okay, so this is where you're, and do you create your content on your own, or you have somebody to work for you?
Mostly myself on the personal side, but when it comes to shoots and things like that for Desk to Dusk, there is a group of individuals that I've built a little team that we create those things together.
Oh, okay. So let's talk about the technology part. So where are you within AI right now? Are you learning or holding back or somewhere in the middle?
I'm very optimistic about AI, and I understand the hesitations. It kind of reminds me of the onset of the internet era, when we were all, I can't say I was a kid, but, when the internet was just a new thing, we were also apprehensive. People were apprehensive about it because we didn't understand how that would integrate into our daily lives and what hurdles it would create. But AI is in our lives already, and it's not coming. It's just there, and it increases daily, it feels like. So I'm very optimistic about it, and I just know that I consider myself a writer and an athlete. Before I'm a former athlete, I still hold on to that. But so I think there's some things about our lives that we cannot outsource to AI. And I believe as AI continues to develop, things like the human experience, storytelling, and just that personal touch is going to become so invaluable, to the human experience. And from a business standpoint, me personally, I love AI from a, streamlining data, and increasing my productivity standpoint. but I'm going to go even harder on making sure my customers do not feel like they're being, some chatbot's going to help them work through some really personal things. So I'm optimistic, but I'm that's how I'm balancing it right now.
That's honestly the healthiest place to be. I mean, I say to everybody, there's no right or wrong answer. And I'm curious that you are not throwing it away like most of the people are. So that's good to hear.
No, I think I understand why. I do understand why, because there is so much that is threatened by AI. I think the key there would be to have qualified people regulating how AI is integrated into business and life. But I think the key word there is qualified.
There's a need for an ethical governance over AI, and people are working on it. So maybe I think by the end of 2026 or maybe the starting of 2027, there will be a lot of people who will be.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we are coming to the end part of our conversations. So what are you building next, and how can women listening be a part of you?
My goal for the next couple years is to take Desk to Desk, the showroom experience, outside of Fresno and test that in different markets and bring that personal one-on-one shopping experience that we have here in Fresno to other cities. Again, prior to the showroom, 100% of my business was online. I had a lot of East Coast customers. And so I would like to bring some of that out there and then internationally as well. So I'm originally from Dubai. So I want to, test that in different markets as well. And I think it would be great. I think it would be well received. And as far as, how women can, events have been a big part of Desk to Desk because community has been a big part of the business since day one. I want to bring together like-minded women, not just here in the US, but eventually globally too, that are ambitious and moms and, not just mothers, but just ambitious women who are trying to have a positive impact in their communities. And yeah, we do really great events that bring women together. And if you follow us on any of our social pages, we have cohorts and programs that they can be a part of before or after they shop with us.
Wow. I love that there's more coming.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So, Melissa, if you think that this was an episode about clothes, so no, it was about you. And the way you talked about the cost of waiting until you feel ready is going to stay with the people. And the way you feel that how the women should dress up, not to be seen, but to be confident and to be somebody who they are. And they don't need to be prove it. So yes, we all need to be dressed up and show up. So thank you for having this conversation with us. And to everyone else, we'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you, Karina.